monopoly.
Well, sir, you are receiving your time to create time to exist.
Perfect.
We will, as you say, begin with question.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see here. Did the laws of the physical universe,
You mean yours?
yeah, our physical universe, are you distinct to mine from ours?
In that way, understand, there will be, within many mass consciousnesses, the idea of their own, in a sense, physical universe. We will share what you term to be many portions of one universe in that way. There are many ideas that you call parallel universe, some of which do not in that way share the idea, agreement, that you call laws of physics. The same as you.
Okay, I was be talking about research.
All right.
Did they evolve as they were needed, or were they conceived in toto at the time of the creation?
Every idea in that way, as you understand it, comes complete, as a complete idea. Therefore, the idea of the creation of this particular viewpoint universe will then have contained, from the moment of its creation inception in that way, all the ideas which then define it by its vibration. You follow me?
Yeah. Was it created all in kind of one instant, or?
Now, understand that from the point of view of what you term to be non-physical dimensionality, which is where, in a sense, in your vernacular, the universe was created from, it seemed, in a sense, to be an instant, since there is no time in that way. In terms of the creation of time itself, then that manifestation as it was created then must have follow, in a sense, its own course, and enact out itself through the idea of a time frame, a time scale, and in that sense, as you would say, it took time. You follow me?
Time to develop the creation?
In a sense, understand that the creation was instantaneous. But as it was manifested into physical reality, one of the ideas defining the parameters of physical reality itself being the concept you call time, then it seemed to unfold in a time sense.
I got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Question.
At the beginning of time as we know it on the planet, were these thought forms projected to create a physical being on the earth, or how did that?
In a sense, again, as you understand, there were many ideas of projections in many different time frames in that way, some of which were, in your estimation of what you term to be historical time, quite instantaneous, some unfolded more within the time track. There is at this time, in what you perceive to be the idea of your physical form, a blending of the two ideas.
And when these ideas first created on the planet, was that considered the country of, or the landmass of the continent of Atlantis?
Nope.
The Garden of Eden?
Nope. Understanding that way, the idea of what you will term to be now, realize this is quite allegorical from a very, very specific point of view, but as you may understand it in your terminology, there will have been the, I'll say, projection of that physicality, that life force in the area blended as it was at that time, not known to you in the way it is now, but more in the area you would call a collective Asiatic landmass. You follow me? More in the area you would call China. But it was then the idea that split into what was later Lemuria and Asia. You follow me?
Yes, what happened to Atlantis?
Understand that is quite recent in your history as you know it. Not more in that way was the destruction of that landmass then approximately 12,500 of your years ago. You follow me?
Destruction of what landmass?
Atlantis.
So what happened? When did Lemuria?
Lemuria, in that way, was more the idea of approximately in that way, allow me to say, 50,000 of your years ago, there were in that way a major, what you term upheavals. 75,000 of your years ago in that way. Also, there were in that sense the idea of this landmass stretching back to several hundreds of thousands of your years in that way. But there was then the idea in your time frame as you understand it within the overall landmass in that way which existed at the time of the projection of the physicality then many tens of millions of good years ago as you count time.
Was the destruction of Lemuria 75,000 years ago connected with the altering of the Earth's axis and what we call the Ice Age?
To a degree, there was that time frame coincident. Understanding that way, it will simply have represented the vibrational patterns of your Earth crystal as it was going through a very natural cycle in that way. You follow me?
Yes.
Was not then the entire idea of what you turned to be destruction in the 75,000 year time frame, but also extended to the 50,000 year time frame of your years ago. This then was the origin upon what you now hold to be your present existence upon this continent that you have termed North America to be the, I'll say, injection of that civilization you recognize to this day in that way as what you call the Hopi. You follow me?
Yes, and is that the epicenter, or say the center of where the center of the Earth comes out is where the Hopi?
In an allegorical astral sense, not in what you would term a literal configuration. But they will be able to make literalness of it, in that they have already deemed that their reality exists both in the physical and the dream state naturally.
Do the beings that live in the center of the Earth, if there are such occurrences, is this where the Hopis is their contact to the surface?
Again, understand in a way that what you express to be the existence in a way of consciousness within your planet will for the most part be of extra-dimensional sense. Therefore, there will be a doorway in that way within that civilization you call Hopi, and they will have passage through. But understand it is not as you understand it exactly, literally, physically, that they exist in that way inside your planet. Although there are pockets in your terminology of existence in that way under the surface of your planet, but it is not as widespread in a physical sense as you think. There is, in a sense, a widespread existence in an astral sense, an extra-dimensional sense. This then can form the transformation in that way through the doorways as they are created by the mass consciousness of any particular culture within your entire civilization, and as such they give themselves free access to these dimensional realms, to these contacts with other civilizations, other consciousnesses, which are in that way said to exist within the surface of your Earth in other dimensional sense in that way, because they allow themselves to exist, the Hopi that is, allow themselves to exist halfway between physicalness and non-physicalness as a natural state of being. You follow me?
Yes, is that the state of consciousness that that the present civilization as we know it progress towards?
Yes, in a sense, this is what is defined as the idea of transformation from third density to fourth density awareness. That, in that, you allow the heretofore self-created separation between your physical reality and non-physical reality to become removed and be blended in consciousness so that you will begin to live, physically live your dreams. You follow me?
Yes.
Thank you. Question?
Yeah, I have a lot of stuff I could share, but, you know, like you said, I want to ramble on for hours and hours, and it pertains to the idea of Jesus Christ, which is an idea that I've never really much been interested in, and that I'm taking a look at now in order to integrate my judgment and fear of religion in general.
All right.
And I feel like I've been taking a look at what I think are my past lives in order to get another picture from the perspective of looking at it that way.
Some have been also alternate. Rather than directly linearly path to this here and now physical life. You follow me?
Alternate to what I am.
Alternate lives, alternate dimensions of reality.
Okay.
Another time track.
Alright, well the one that I could really pick up on was that I had a life as a nun, or half a life as a nun.
Nice.
And with it, there's a lot of bitterness towards that idea.
Nice.
Certain ideas that I had were not
Nice.
fulfilled. But in thinking about being in the time when Jesus Christ was there, I don't really get a picture of me other than maybe somebody who sort of stood back and watched.
You were not in that way within the exact time frame of the physical life of that entity.
You know, something like that. Okay,
person has
Night can't be moony.
somebody else gets like flu or any kind of would it be that the really not contagious from one person to the next, except that the person that is relevant the other one they would definitely be causing it themselves, right?
Yes, there is, however, the creation of a physical symbolic mechanism to, in that way, it reflects back to you the idea that it is being a transference of consciousness, a transference of idea, a sharing of concepts.
Night can't be moony.
Right, but a person has a choice of whether
Yes.
they want to take it or not, right?
Yes.
In other words, I decide something to somebody else with contagious disease, I would be actually offering them that choice, and they have a choice of taking it or not taking it.
Yes,
And that's what it is across the board.
yes, yes. Understand that many times there will be the acceptance of the offering so as to perform a service to the overall idea which the mass consciousness, that is the collective consciousness of your entire civilization, is working through at the time. You follow me? Thank you.
One other thing, why do people, maybe I can answer the question while I'm
Oh, maybe.
what, the old saying that when you resist something a lot, you become that thing.
Yes.
But basically, you're resisting and putting a lot of attention on that idea.
Yes.
And causing it to stay there with you.
Yes, if you feel the need to defend yourself against something, then the basic belief that you are then saying you have is that you feel there is something worth the energy to defend against. And in that way, your belief reinforces the idea that there is something possibly more powerful than yourself in that way that can, for some reason, then gain power over you. And that is why you create then the idea of its ability to have more energy than you feel yourself to have, because you are giving your power away to that idea in feeling that you need to defend yourself from anything anyway to begin with. You follow me?
It's interesting. Yeah. So you're okay. So you're resisting something.
That is another portion of yourself.
You're just feeling that it will overcome you, so you have to stand back from the whole thing and hope it won't hurt you.
That is the creation of the idea of the reinforcement of that negative effect.
So as long as you feel there's something there that's more powerful than you,
Then you will always be a victim.
right, and you'll always have these things occur.
Yes. Until you allow yourself to realize that the only reason you are creating them is to give yourself the understanding that you no longer need to create them. You follow me? Those physical ideas, those physical expressions are there as symbolic reflections which you create for yourself to remind yourself in a physically conscious manner that you are creating it and this is what you are going through, and there is no need now to experience this idea anymore because you are allowing the purpose for the physical creation to be lived out, and in that way, in allowing any symbol to serve its purpose, it no longer needs to manifest.
I understand. What about for a person who doesn't consciously become aware that they are causing that for themselves?
Again, understand in that way, it may still serve the purpose of allowing themselves to create that for themselves so as to not be conscious of their own creation, so as to interact in such a way, in a limited viewpoint way with other individuals, so as to allow those individuals in that way to come to their own terms of acceptance for what is occurring, and in that way, allow there to be a service being done by the acceptance of that disease for display to other individuals so that they can come to terms with ideas within themselves. You follow me?
Yeah. So they're like a mirror for other people. And
Yes.
that's their purpose in having that disease.
Can be, yes.
Yeah.
There are many, many reasons for the manifestation of any particular physical symbol in your society.
So it's like everybody's helping each other out, reflecting.
Yes.
Amazing, right?
It is very, very natural. It is very simple. It is very automatic. Thank you.
Does the same go for natural disasters around the planet?
In a sense, so they will be seen, in a sense, to be reflections of the ideas in that way in a mass conscious point of view. In other words, that portion of the mass consciousness that is self-aware of itself in that way, that is then acting out the idea of blending its mass un and mass sub-consciousness in the same way that you as an individual are beginning to blend your subconscious and unconsciousness with your outer aware physical consciousness in that way, and as such then to ease these, I will say, tension symbols within yourself, to relieve stresses within yourself in much the same way that your overall mass conscious awareness, your planet, relieves stresses within itself in that way, Understand you are simply now as a mass consciousness beginning to realize that you have the opportunity to rechannel these energies from the earth crystal in the way, from the mass consciousness in that way, into more positive effects. Because you now simply understand that you are the cause of that idea, you are sharing that idea, you are the creator of that idea, and in that way you may choose any which way you wish to manifest that energy, and so become conscious creators. In parallel, tandem, synchronous co-creatorhood with the entire consciousness of your civilization. You follow me?
Yes, did this knowledge of the universal law have something to do with the caste system in Atlantis?
Rather, it wasn't that way. The choice to ignore that idea that caused what you term to be the differentiation between levels of society.
Could you explain a little more in detail why there was such a caste system, if there was one?
There wasn't that way? Yes, and understand it was from the idea that there was the beginning of the choice in a mass conscious way to explore the idea of, I'll say, negativity within the self. The idea of separation of the self from all that is. When the individual then chose to feel that they wish to explore separation of self from all that is, then understand that there must be still within the higher consciousness the recognition of the self-connection to all that is. But when you choose separation from all that is in a conscious manner, then you are self-limited, you are self-blinded in that way, yet still following the yearnings, in a sense, that are imparted to you from the higher consciousness, which always whispers into your subconsciousness the idea of the connection that you have. Having made the separation, however, and not listening in that way to the higher consciousness from a collective point of view, you will then fulfill the idea of yearning to be connected to everything by then feeling that since you are not a part of everything, the only way to become connected to everything is to have dominion over it. You follow me?
Yeah.
What do you mean dominion over it?
Domination. Subjugation.
And that leads to materialism?
That leads to the idea of differentiation and what you term the caste system. It leads to the idea that there is a need for materialization in order to support the self, rather than simply allowing the idea of the expression of material ideas to be simply one more symbol for the manifestation and recognition and integration of your entire consciousness towards the idea of a collective, all that is. You follow me? Question!
On the subject of illness, as we were discussing before, are you saying that even for someone whose wavelength is not attuned to someone with perhaps, say, AIDS, if they came in direct contact with the carrier of AIDS and came in direct contact with the symbol of transmission of AIDS, they still wouldn't get AIDS?
If that is not their vibration, no.
Okay.
You are your own universe. You choose what you wish to manifest within it, according to what you believe about yourself.
Slightly different subject. Acknowledging that we do have free will, and that some of us choose negative vibrations, even as being victims, is there any validity to the idea of Earth as a prison planet within this concept of mass reality?
Only as you choose to imprison yourselves.
So there's no mass consciousness choosing Earth as a prison planet or something like that?
Allow me to say, there is that idea within the overall mass consciousness. At this time, as we perceive your overall mass consciousness, it is not a major percentage of what the mass consciousness knows itself to be.
Was that just an idea that somebody, that portions had, or did they actually go through a process?
It was an idea which was then created to begin to understand from the separated point of view you were coming from, the idea of contact with other consciousness, that you had to first seem to be, in a sense, outside yourself, then recognizing it from the point of view that you created in being separate from all that is, you began to recognize it as, oh, greater than yourselves in that way, and as such, formed temporarily the idea that somehow you were then put upon by them and imprisoned in that way in your situation, always then casting off the responsibility of your creations onto something else other than yourselves.
But that act of someone else, even symbolically putting us here, didn't actually occur. It was just a concept that we created to...
You put yourselves here.
Yeah.
Why?
So I just do.
Thank you.
But I've got a question.
All right.
The people in Ethiopia who are starving, are they doing that on purpose, like to fix
In a sense, understand in that way that, as we have said in that sense, There is always within any situation the opportunity to see the gift within the situation and to allow the symbol of that situation then to serve its purpose and then transform from the idea you are now experiencing as starvation. Recognizing that way, that while you are in that sense aiding them, they, by creating the manifestation symbol in that way to allow you to aid them, are also allowing you to relieve your spiritual starvation. You follow me?
Yeah.
Then when each of you blend into the overall understanding that each is a valid path, a valid gift in that way of love, of sharing, then both will be allowed to serve their purposes and you will be able to blend within the idea of abundance spiritually and abundance materially for all concerned.
So, I got another question. Do you suggest I could use my like not get triple?
Why?
Well, I think it looks better. It looks hotter and feels better.
Use better.
Yeah.
Must you in that way then create the condition of the physical symbol before you will choose to feel better? Or would you rather feel better first and allow it to automatically create the physical symbol that goes along with the effect of feeling better?
I guess I'd rather feel better first.
Alright, go ahead. You may begin to feel better. You may feel better. You may simply understand there really is no better. You may simply feel exactly perfect. Because every moment of creation that you create is exactly a perfect moment of creation. No matter what idea, positive or negative, is being created, is a perfect, flawless manifestation of that particular expression of your creative consciousness. Therefore, when you cease comparing conditions, when you cease comparing realities, you will simply understand that every reality is a perfect creation unto itself, and therefore you may then, when you give yourself a situation in your life that you judge to be negative, allow yourself to know that that is the judgment itself. It is only the judgment itself, not the situation, the judgment of the situation which sustains a negative effect. Therefore, when you allow a situation, though it may seem to your judgment perhaps to be negative, when you simply come from your knowing self that this is also a part of my unfoldment, not an interruption, not a break in my momentum, but a part of the added momentum, then you can allow yourself to manifest the symbol for the purpose. You may allow yourself to clairvoyantly, that is clear-seeingly, realize the purpose for the manifestation and in that way integrate it within yourself. Allow it to do its job and it will go on its way and not sit around. There is no physical symbol that outlives its usefulness. As long as it exists, it is because you have not allowed it to be useful and valid. For the ideas you are allowing yourself to explore within your consciousness. As soon as you allow an idea to be valid and serve its purpose, it will transform into something else.
You'd say something like that, but I was hoping you'd say something like carrots.
Alright, why did you say,
Well, vitamin A.
alright, is that what you said for yourself?
I thought that might help a little, but I think that is really
Alright, what do you not think but feel? Might be a symbol that will allow you acceptance of your belief system and allow you in that way to heal yourself.
I don't think I understand what you're asking.
What do you feel will be a physical symbol? Carrot is a physical symbol.
Yeah.
Understand, no carrot in the world cures you. You use the...
It's going to need a physical symbol.
Alright, very good. Alright, but allow me to say in that way, then there is still a sense of separation from the idea itself. In that way, you may be, in that sense, beginning to recognize the idea of situations as symbols, yes. But you are still, in that way, allowing them to be a framework which is somehow still outside your life itself. Something which guides you as opposed to something which is you. Anytime in that way you create the symbols for yourself to not be allowed to be you itself, then when you are going through the exploration of attempting to integrate your consciousness, that is in that way when you are attempting to form the idea consciously that the ideas in your life are you, then because you are working with that particular idea, those symbols will return and return and return until you allow them to actually be you and not remain as simply tools outside your head.
Okay, I understand the principle. I am having difficulty with workability.
No, you are not.
No, there was extra contradiction.
No, not a contradiction. We are simply in that way expressing that you have told us that you are creating the idea that you are having difficulty. And therefore, because you are creating